Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I do hope you're doing well. Well, there is so much going on. I'm literally screaming at the top of my lungs and losing my ever-loving mind. But I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to show it. I'm just going to sit here and talk about the things that are happening as calmly as I can. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the things that a lot of people don't want to say. They don't want to say it. And I think the only person that can say it is me. And I'm going to say it. We're going to talk about how this is truly a life and death situation that we're seeing. Harry has put himself in a conundrum with his security case. And Meghan is trying to make that money. She's trying to make that money, girl. Go make your money, girl. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's get into it. Now, one of the things that I think we have to go back to when we look at everything with Harry and Meghan and what they're talking about now, or more specifically what Harry is talking about and how he is in the UK right now trying to fight for his security. We really do have to go back to the Oprah Winfrey interview. I remember doing my videos at that time and saying there is a train wreck coming. There is a train wreck coming. And that train wreck came and it went. And that is what has put us in the position we are in now. It is the Oprah interview. But then you look at how did we get to the Oprah interview? And that in itself gives us a lot of information about this life and death situation that we're in, because it truly is life and death. Harry is sleeping with the enemy. He is sleeping with someone that has put him in a position that is life and death. Meghan hasn't grown up royal. Meghan hasn't been in a position of privilege like Harry, although she had privilege from a very American middle class point of view. Yes, she grew up in privilege, but she hasn't grown up with this uber privilege that Harry is suddenly losing his mind over, because he is now feeling like the lower class privilege that Meghan grew up with, because he's living in the world, not having the kind of things he's used to as a royal. So he's been downgraded, and he's not used to it. And Meghan is like, la-di-da, hum-de-dum, let me go make some jam. Let me go make some jam. Because for her, this is just life. This is elevated life for her, because now she's got the world to pay attention to her with her jams. She's living large. But Harry is losing his mind because, I'm not used to this. And so what you have to now look at, I mean, you could do such a deep dive on this and really get into it especially for the people that don't have a clue, especially for the people that don't follow this, to understand why Harry is in a life and death situation, literally. But you go back to this court case and the date of this court case. And then you go back to Montecito, California, and you look at Meghan plotting and planning her business. Her podcast has suddenly just been picked to come out on a day and time during Harry's court case, which had been planned in advance. Meghan would have known that her husband's court case would be going on during this time, but yet and still, she still chose to release her podcast and to have the launch of her brand for As Ever products released. Why would you suddenly put yourself in a position of hyper focus and, got to do this right? This is the big launch. And you do it during a time when your husband is going through one of the most difficult times in his head this time. Like, this is a big time for Harry, his court case. That sets the tone for this life and death situation that we are in. That you need to understand as a choice. Meghan made that choice. An adulting wife that wants to support her husband doesn't do that. She just doesn't. Because you either are supporting your husband or you're not. And even if she didn't want to go to the UK, you certainly don't put yourself in a position to not take the calls or to pay attention to what is happening over in the UK during this time. But Meghan chose to do just that. So you have to look at, well, what is the issue? Why is Meghan doing this? And I clearly know why she is doing it. But we have to look at the evidence. We have to look at what has prompted all of this. So I want to take us back to the Oprah interview because I think that kind of gives us the momentum of why Harry and Meghan are in this position that they're in now. They left the royal family. They had this big blow up that was going to shock the world, and that was the Oprah interview. And they revealed some things during that interview. And I've been rewatching it and watching it and thinking, like, what did I miss? What's happening? And I watched it and I came up with 3 things. And we've heard them, but I want you to focus on these 3 things. This comes down to race. It comes down to titles. And it comes down to security. These 3 things. 3 things that essentially have put Harry and Meghan in the position, or basically Harry in this position that he is in now. Okay, so during the Oprah interview, they said several times that the only reason why they left the royal family, because this is why you have to look at the position that Harry is in now around his security. You have to look at why they left the royal family, because these issues only happened because they left the royal family. Harry is in this position of being scared and being crazy, out of his mind about somebody hurting him and his family. This is only happening because Harry left the royal family. So we look at the things that were talked about, and we also look at the fact that Harry tried to downplay the race issue, that my family's not racist. My family's not racist. Okay. But they most certainly made it about race during the very first opportunity that they had, independent of the royal family. And that was the interview with Oprah Winfrey. And then Harry started to backpedal because he saw, this is not good. This is not good. We made a poor choice, Meghan. And Meghan's like, my jams. And Harry's like, my family, we're saying they're racist, for real. And then they go get their award for calling out racism. Harry later tries to backtrack. But Meghan is like, my jams. Really, that's what she's doing. So let's just look at a couple things during the Oprah interview where they made it about the race. They made it about the title, which was a lie. Meghan said some things we know about the titles that were not true, that were inaccurate. And then the security issue. Let's just look at a few of those things.
What kind of protection did you want that you feel you didn't receive?
I mean, they would go on the record and negate the most ridiculous story for anyone, right? If I'm talking about things that are super artificial and inconsequential.
Now, she says superficial, inconsequential. Meghan's words. She said that. Okay? Remember that.
But the narrative about, making Kate cry, I think was the beginning of a real character assassination. And they knew it wasn't true. And I thought, well, if they're not going to kill things like that, then what are we going to do? Separate from that, and what was happening behind closed doors was, we knew I was pregnant. We now know it's Archie, and that it was a boy. We didn't know any of that at the time. We can just talk about it as Archie now. And that was when they were saying they didn't want him to be a prince or a princess, not knowing what the gender would be, which would be different from protocol.
Okay, so that in itself is not true. That's just blatantly not true. And Meghan will mention it later what the truth is. But right here, that's not true. We know it to not be true because the reality is right now they are prince and princess. So if she's saying this, how could it be that the children are now prince and princess now? So we know what she's saying right here is a lie.
And that he wasn't going to receive security.
What?
It was really hard.
What do you mean?
He wasn't going to receive security. This went on for the last few months of our pregnancy, where I'm going, hold on a second.
That your son and Harry, Prince Harry's son, was not going to receive security?
That's right.
Okay, then she goes on, I don't need a title, I'm just Meghan. All right. So in this situation right here, we all know that the king had talked about downsizing the monarchy. That was one of the things he was going to do when he became king. But during this time when the queen was still here, or the late Queen Elizabeth, Meghan was never going to be able to have her children be called prince and princess because that's just not giving to the grandchildren of the monarch. Till Charles became king, they would not get these titles. But as long as Queen Elizabeth was alive, these children were never going to be called prince and princess. But Meghan, for the American audience and for Oprah, said that they wanted to take that away. They didn't want to take it away. They wanted to change things once King Charles became king to downsize the monarchy. Go do what we tell you to do. We're changing the monarchy. It has nothing to do with your race. It has nothing to do with, you not getting security. It's just the things that have been planned well, I believe, even before Meghan even came into the picture. But how Meghan twisted the change that the king wanted to make and made it about her was a blatant lie. Okay? And Harry didn't really say anything, or he never even came out to contradict that, what his wife said. He fell into this trap about his family wanting to do these things that Meghan lied about. And if they were truly going to be a part of the monarchy and to do what they were going to do and just support the monarchy, it would have never been a problem. Because they just would have been doing the royal duty. The monarchy was going to be downsized. They would have still been protected, and they would have lived their lives happily ever after doing the work. But Meghan, what did she do? She created a storm. She created a storm. Why? Because she wanted to do her jams. She wanted to do her jams. And if she didn't create a storm and a tornado and all this chaos around race, titles, security, she couldn't do her jams. She couldn't do her jams, folks. Okay? So that right there tells you that was the beginning. That was Meghan setting the foundation for the setup for Harry and his current life and death situation right now. She found the issues that she wanted to find to make herself the victim, so she had an excuse to go make her jams. Yeah, that's what she did. And now Harry is off fighting to get his security because he is scared out of his ever-loving mind about his security. So on January 8th of 2020, Harry and Meghan officially stepped back their official roles as a part of the royal family. And the reason why they did it, they considered that they were not being protected by the institution. And we just heard Meghan say it was inconsequential over little things like making Kate cry. Like they felt that they weren't being protected over these inconsequential things. So they left the royal family. They gave up everything over the fact that they felt the royal family wasn't protecting them over the things that the press was saying about Harry and Meghan. That is the fundamental reason why they felt they weren't being protected. But then they always said, but they wanted to continue their duties in support of the late Queen as privately funded members of the royal family. So they didn't like how people were, or the royal family, was it taking up for them, being their supporter and cheerleader around all the negativity that they were getting. And I go back to, if you're not reading the headlines, if you don't read the newspapers, which Meghan and Harry have said, why was that ever even a problem then? Why did you even care? They contradict themselves. It should not have mattered that you weren't being supported around the news headlines if you didn't read it. For your own sanity, why does it matter? See, they never really had a reason to leave the royal family. They had a very inconsequential and non-important reason for leaving. Because all throughout the Oprah interview, Oprah never really quite understood exactly what the issue was. She just kept asking that question. What is it that you wanted? It's because you're not being protected? But why is the royal family choosing not to protect you? Oprah did not get it. And that's when Meghan made a very big decision, a very big choice. What was that choice? Well, she had to say something explosive. She had to do something to make Oprah really understand the validity of this not being protected. She had to make Oprah understand this in a very big way. What could it have been? Oh, race will make our wanting to leave the royal family a big enough issue for Oprah to understand, and for the millions of people watching, why we really had to leave.
The idea of our son not being safe, and also the idea of the first member of color in this family not being titled in the same way that other grandchildren would be. You know, the other piece of that conversation is there's a convention, I don't know if it's George V or George VI convention, that when you're the grandchild of the monarch, so when Harry's dad becomes king, automatically Archie and our next baby would become prince or princess or whatever they're going to be.
So for you, it's about protection and safety, not so much as what the title means.
That's a huge piece of it, but
that having the title gives you the safety and protection.
Yeah, but also it's not their right to take it away.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think even with that convention I'm talking about, while I was pregnant, they said they want to change the convention for Archie.
Now, seriously, for real, Meghan. For real. They're going to change the convention of this ruling because of Archie? Really, Meghan? Now, Harry, you know that's a lie. That's a lie. Oprah didn't know it was a lie. She was like, oh my God, for real? And Meghan is trying to make this thing so big because people just don't get it. Is this really about inconsequential things, Meghan? Oh, but when you talk about race, that makes it a for real situation.
You certainly must have had some conversations with Harry about it and have your own suspicions as to why they didn't want to make Archie a prince.
Because Oprah just wasn't getting it. Oprah was not understanding the facts that we weren't being protected, Oprah. Don't make me have to come out and say it. Do I have to say it? Because remember, it was inconsequential. It was these little things about the press. And this was the moment Meghan decided to say something I don't think she had really planned to say. But she had to say it because it wasn't sticking. It wasn't hitting home the reason why they wanted to leave so she could go make her jams. She had to say it, folks.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because of his race? And I know that's a loaded question, but
I can give you an honest answer. in those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
And that right there was the moment that Meghan decided this was going to be about race. Because later in the interview, Harry said that was a conversation he was never going to have. And then we all know what happened from there. The big what? Who's having that conversation? And so Meghan wanted people to understand on the lie that she had to leave because it was about the race. It was about this title that they were going to take from Archie, which wasn't true. And it was about their security and being safe. She didn't want to offer her child up on a platter. They wasn't going to be safe. But I just really want you to understand that Harry is sleeping with the enemy. This is a life and death situation for him. And all Meghan really truly wanted to do was to make her jams and to be this woman off doing the podcast that she's doing during the time that Harry is doing his court case, and let him go fend for himself, because I'm doing me, boo. I'm doing me in America. And Harry is fending for his life. He is scared and he wants security, and he's also a spoiled, rotten brat because he made the choice. He made the choice, and he doesn't want to live with the consequences of his choice. And this is what it comes down to, folks. I'll keep talking about it, but I need you to really understand the race, the title, and the security issue that Meghan played on during this Oprah interview that put Harry in the predicament that he is in right now. Harry is sleeping with the enemy, his wife, who put him in this position. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.